Hi, this is Charlie Calvert, and I'm here to talk you through the mobile device overview deck. If you want to see this deck outside of the video, you can go to http:/bit.ly/VARDRX, case sensitivity matters here, and you could be looking at the slides. But of course, for now, it's simplest for you just to watch the video itself. So what's in this deck? We're going to talk why mobile devices, a little bit about the history of mobile devices, a little bit about desktop versus mobile, a little bit about, quite a bit about what mobile devices really are. Then we'll also talk some about types of mobile devices, tablet, smartphone, feature phone, Chromebooks, netbooks, MP3 players, just sort of get you through that. Then this is really, part one of a three-part, trying to explain, give you a general overview of mobile devices. Will take a while, so I have two other decks which won't be part of this video, which you'd have to come back and watch another video to see. So a little bit, just very briefly, about the history. I think they go way back. The history of mobile devices go way back to portable calculators, which first showed up back in 1971. Then my first computer actually was an Osborne, which came out in '81, and it was, I don't know, what do they say, as big as a bread box? It's that kind of size computer with a screen, not much bigger really than we have on a mobile phone, maybe on a small tablet, but embedded inside a much larger box that was, roughly the size of a bread box. I don't know, a couple feet square. And they were heavy, but they were portable. Then the Trash 80, of course, a famous computer. For those of you with a little gray hair will remember that computer. It was relatively portable. The Scion Series 3 was starting to look a little bit like what we think of as mobile computers now. And then, of course, the Palm Pilot in '96 essentially has the same form factor as you get on an iPhone or an iPod or a Android. So it was really the first, absolutely, it was the one that started this whole concept of what does it mean to hold a device that's a few inches square in your hand and have it actually have real computing power. We'll skip ahead a little bit. The RIM BlackBerry was another huge step forward in this, where you really started to have a connected thing with a phone and with address book and so on inside of it. In 2005, 2004, 2005, both Google and Apple are busy building their phones and their mobile devices. They both started within a year, within a few months of each other, building these things. The iPhone came out in 2007 and the Android in 2008, and with the iPod launch in 2010. So that just gives you a general overview of the way the history of this thing went. So let's talk a little bit about some definitions here now. So one thing we need to get out of the way, we'll have a whole nother deck at some other time on networking and that type of capability, but we need to just be a little bit aware of the difference between Wi-Fi and cellular networks. A Wi-Fi network is the type of thing that you can buy in your home and attach to your network, and it'll give you a range of, I don't know, up to 100 yards. These numbers are fuzzy here, but you can get 50 yards, you can get 100 yards, in some cases more than that, and they get you on the network through a wireless connection to the network. Then cellular networks are what many phones will also have Wi-Fi networks, but they will have cellular networks which will cover broad areas, say an entire city or an even entire state, and you go to a company like Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile and you pay to get on to their cellular networks. So that's the big deal, and often you'll even buy your phone through these cellular networks. So because the idea of, can I talk on a phone, can I get on a network anywhere even if I'm outside of range of a Wi-Fi network. Wi-Fi generally free, very powerful, very useful, very fast. Cellular networks expensive, not as fast, although getting faster all the time, particularly with 4G. Desktops versus mobile. Desktops, there's about 1 billion of them installed. You usually use them inside an office unless you're on a laptop, which is really, for our purposes, a kind of network, kind of desktop. And they usually use a wired connection, though of course laptops can also use Wi-Fi or in some cases even cellular data. Mobile devices got about 4 billion of them, okay? Many, many more mobile devices, and they tend to work anywhere, particularly if you're on a cellular network. Okay, so digging in a little deeper into what a mobile device is. Mobile devices usually weigh less than 2 pounds. They're less than 12 inches in width. Many of them, very common form factors, are more like 7, 5, or even 4 inches in height. Um, but when you get anything much above 12 inches, you're pretty much out of the mobile device thing. Um, so to talk about weight here, a MacBook Air and some of the Ultrabooks will get down, 2.3, 2.5. Some of the netbooks will also get down in that weight, but not usually below 2 pounds. So 2 pounds is sort of a magic number with mobile devices. And we'll talk about that in just a second more, maybe the next slide. A mobile device is portable. It'll run on a battery. You don't need to be plugged into a socket. Now, some laptops are like that too, definitely. There's a little bit of fuzziness in these categories, but one of the key things about a mobile device is that it's a computer, okay? And sometimes that can be a little confusing. You think, well, a mobile device is a phone or it's an MP3 player. No, it's a computer, particularly the powerful ones that we're mostly concerned with when we talk about mobile devices. They're going to have an operating system like Android or iOS inside of it. They'll have applications, word processing, database, media players. They're going to have multi-core processors. Okay, so quite often the desktops that you had 3 or 4 or 5 years ago in your home or in your office that you thought were pretty cool didn't have dual core, didn't have quad core processors in them, while these mobile devices, some of the phones and tablets will in fact have multi-core. Most of them now are starting to have multi-core processors, so they're even more powerful in some ways at least than the desktops that we had just a few years ago. And they'll have an hard drive and a file system. You can save files to a hard drive. I mean, they're computers. But having said that, we will find ways in which they differ. Because you're good at computers and a PC doesn't mean you're good at a mobile device. But that's not really our topic of this particular deck here. So more about mobile devices. They're connected to the internet. They use Wi-Fi, they have GPS, or they'll have cellular data. So we talked about those a little bit earlier, what we mean. The key point is they'll allow you to get on the internet or to connect to even a satellite with GPS. They work in tandem with the cloud and developer services, Amazon Web Services, so you can go up and run applications in the cloud, such as Google Docs, or you can connect to programming services, web services of various kind at Amazon and many other companies. And we'll talk about that again in another deck, but just to get you that idea that the cloud is a huge part of what a mobile device is, so huge a part that I dedicate a whole nother deck to it. Modern mobile device usually supports touch, spatial awareness. Spatial awareness means that if you tilt it to the right or the left or up and down, it knows what you're doing. One thing that you've probably all seen about spatial awareness is that you'll be looking at it, holding it in landscape or portrait mode, and you tilt it the other way, and all of a sudden the screen switches over. It knows whether you're holding it up and down or holding it on its side, and the whole screen will adjust automatically. Probably many of you have seen that. So that's part of the spatial awareness, but it goes well beyond that. You can start waving it and shaking it, and it'll know it's being waved around, shaked, tilted, all these different things. Telephony is part of a mobile device. And multimedia would definitely be part of a mobile device. Here's just a little illustration of things running in the cloud. Here are applications that you can reach from a mobile device running in the cloud, where you can have content or collaborations or communications. There's platform running in the cloud, where you can run programs that you've written. You can write a program and then run it on a cloud-based platform. And then there's infrastructure, where you can actually have entire computers, a version of Windows or a version of Linux running in the cloud. All right. So, and as I say, we'll talk about the cloud in much more depth in another deck. Mobile devices are good at consuming content, and they're only fair at content creation. Now, there's some kinds of content creation, taking photographs, sometimes making movies, which they'll be better than a PC at, because a PC's anchored to a desk. And obviously the fact that you can move a mobile device around makes it much better at, say, recording sound or at taking photographs, at least in some cases, than a PC would be. Um, so those are important facts about them. And now this is not an official definition of a mobile device, but nevertheless, let's talk about this for just a little bit. A mobile device can be used in any position. I never read this when I'm reading about descriptions of mobile devices, but this is the most important, to me, most important thing about a mobile device, that I can use it sitting down, I can use it standing up, I can use it lying on my back. I use mobile devices a lot, lying on my back. At night I read books, I'll listen to music, I'll even take notes. Just sort of, lying at night and I get some ideas, have a brainstorm, I'll start typing things into Evernote or something on a mobile device, swiping it in, right, And so the fact that you can use it in any position is crucial to it, and that's why we can carry them on trains, carry them on planes. They're useful to us in these different places because we don't have to be at a desk. So another thing about it is you can use it with one hand. That's another really nice thing. Sometimes you want to be doing two things at once, or you want to be reading at night. You don't want to hold both hands up. You can hold up a phone with one hand and read a book, a Kindle book or something like that on your phone. And this one-handed thing is another way. It's a nice distinguisher too, because things that are small, like a netbook or a MacBook Air or an Ultrabook, that are getting so close in weight and size to a phone, you go, well, what's the difference? Well, you really need two hands. You need to be typing with two hands to make those things work, while with a phone you can do the whole thing usefully with one hand. Okay, so another general thing that we'll talk about, sort of sliding off into the future here, is this concept of ubiquitous computing. And that's this idea that instead of us having, we all started out with mainframes, way back in the dark ages when the dinosaurs were roaming around here out in Montana and places like that. And then we started getting PCs, came into our life, and they changed the world quite a bit and said, okay, it's not just about mainframes, it's about something you can have in your home. And then we had laptops, and we said, well, we can actually kind of take this desktop with us from our home out to the restaurant where we're eating, or not really too much the restaurant where we're eating, that's not a good one, but to work in a coffee shop, say, or working at the library or something like that. Laptops opened it up quite a bit. And then mobile devices took us into our restaurants, took us into a seat in a bus or a train, took us into all kinds of different places on the bus. We can be using these things. And so in the future, it's going to take another step, and we're going to start finding mobile devices everywhere. They're going to be inside refrigerators. They're going to be in our stereos. They're already in our cars, right? They're going to be in our lawnmowers. They're going to be in light bulbs, right? We're going to start finding an ability to actually have each light bulb in our house on the network, right? So we could turn one on, turn one off by light bulb, not just by lamp or something like that. And we know how many are working. Are they burned out yet? Are they still running? Things like this. We could theoretically at least have some way where we could ask our refrigerator, how many cartons of milk do we have in there? This kind of thing, where our clothes, where did I put my t-shirt? And it could answer us, because in some sense it's on the network. All right, this is that sci-fi next step, ubiquitous computing, which takes us beyond what we are currently thinking of mobile devices, but still very similar to what we're doing right now. Some people have probably been at a fancy presentation, right, where a guy has a t-shirt that sort of seems to be doing some kind of computing as he's talking. This whole idea that we're moving to yet another world here. Types of mobile devices. So let's talk a little bit about types of mobile devices. There are tablets, which will have things like a PDA on them, giving you email, calendar, contacts. That's what people call PDA. And then they'll have MP3 and video and camera, so they have multimedia. They'll have web browsers. They'll have touch. Okay, we can touch the screen and manipulate the screen with our fingers. They'll have GPS sometimes in a tablet, and they'll have Wi-Fi And sometimes they'll have cellular networks, they'll have 3G and 4G. They'll frequently, usually, have Skype or video phones, so the ability, even if you don't have a phone built into your tablet, you can talk using Skype or you can talk using a video phone, which is, got a lot of companies up in arms. All right, so a smartphone is just like a tablet. It has all the features that a tablet has, plus it has a cellular phone. Okay. And more commonly, it will have a cellular network attached to it for 3G and 4G, so that when you negotiate with Verizon or AT&T or whoever it is who's giving you your phone, you would ask for data as well as phone. Okay. True mobile devices are, so here are some less powerful but still true mobile devices. A feature phone would be one of those things, and that's very common. A feature phone is a low-end smartphone, and I kept trying to find, well, what features does a smartphone have that a feature phone doesn't have? And actually, they'll generally have many of the same features. They'll let you browse the network, they'll let you send text messages, they'll let you get on the phone, but it's just harder to use them. They're just less fancy. They're less computer-like is really the best you can say. They're often flip phones. The screens are really tiny. There's a lot of things where you just go, well, this isn't really a feature phone, but it's got a lot of power in it. If only I had fingers the size of a small elf. And then there's your generic mobile phone, which doesn't, lets you talk on the phone, but doesn't even reach the feature phone. Won't let you browse the web, won't let you send text messages, things like that. So there's a mobile phone, but without much capability, won't let you keep track of addresses and so on. Then another kind of interesting guy in this group is the MP3 player, which is really very similar to a tablet, but smaller. So an iPod is a classic example. An Android Samsung Galaxy player is another classic sort of MP3 player. When you're holding an iPod in your hand, all you've got is a lighter iPhone without the phone. So if you want to talk to somebody, you need to run Skype, which you totally can on an iPod. So, or on the Galaxy player, they're running Android. They can do these cool things, but they don't have a phone built into them. So that's those MP3 players, and they're usually significantly cheaper than the other. So smartphones are high-end, feature phones are low-end. But certainly, one thing that's important to remember about feature phones is as long as you got texting, you've got a lot of power. We'll talk about that more as time goes on, the power of texting. But most people know that. They text way too much. There's pseudo mobile devices, things like laptops and netbooks that can weigh even, less than 3 pounds. Certainly, they're very light, and and there's some tablets which you can, the Asus Transformer Prime, you can kind of transform your tablet into a netbook. And that's sort of an interesting thing. The Ultrabooks and MacBook Air, all these things aren't really mobile devices the way I think of them. Is my point here, is that netbooks, laptops aren't really mobile devices in my conception of them. The netbooks, for instance, they don't pass this line on the back test. They can weigh less than 3 pounds, but still they're a little different. And then finally, your Chromebook and your Chromebox. This is a PC or laptop like thing that boots right into Chrome, into your browser, and it boots in like 5 seconds. They're really amazing, but they don't have a hard drive in the sense that a netbook would, or a laptop would, or even that a mobile phone would. So they're a kind of interesting internet-based creature. All right, so just remember that we got a couple related decks so that I can ramble on even longer, if you can believe it, about this topic. But I want to make sure we get some general sense of what we're talking about when we're talking about mobile devices. And we're about a third of the way through that description. My name's Charlie Calvert. Thank you for tuning in. You can go to elvenware.com if you want to find out more about what I'm doing and about this kind of information. Thank you. Bye now.